Welcome to the Mindfully Masculine podcast with Charles and Dan, where we take a conscious, holistic, and direct approach to men's relationships, health, and self-improvement. To join the conversation, give us a rating and a review, and contact us with questions or suggestions at mindfullymasculine@gmail.com. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Charles. How are you?
I am well, thank you. I would say I'm about at a 7 out of 10 today. How are you?
Oh, good. How can we make it a 10 out of 10?
Well, that's not possible, but an 8 out of 10 is probably doable. I'm gonna have lunch with a friend, so that'll bump me up. And
Fantastic.
I may buy a new gadget for a recently acquired hobby, and that'll probably get me up to a 9 because I love buying stuff for new hobbies.
Gadget. Do tell.
Well, gadget, so to speak. New pair of shoes for cutting a rug for dancing.
I think it's a great idea. It's a great investment. I am very happy with mine, and I do notice a difference with my dance shoes versus my regular shoes when I'm on the dance floor. It really helps minimize my clunkiness, as we mentioned previously.
Well,
to each other. Anything
that can minimize clunkiness is a good
Absolutely.
idea for me. Right now, I feel like I'm out there looking like Frankenstein.
We all feel that way. We all feel that way at the beginning, and I still do once in a while. So it's just the more you practice, the less Frankenstein-y you get, I think.
What's your score today? Where are you at on the 10-point scale?
I'm an 8 out of 10. I had a meeting that I didn't really want to attend and was unnecessary get canceled on me, so that's a bonus. And I'm looking forward to some ballroom dancing tonight.
Nice.
Up in St. Augustine. So
I am too.
Yeah.
I joked with my coach yesterday that this is my coming out party because it's the first time that I'm going to dance in public.
No, it's not. It's not.
First time I'm going to dance in public, not screwing around, being drunk.
Well, no, last night at the bar,
that was not dancing.
It certainly wasn't you just taking Frankenstein steps. You actually showed like multiple. You did the box corner, you did the regular step for the foxtrot, and you did the corner, and in the middle of the bar, and you'd only had a drink. So there was people around. That was absolutely in public. So give yourself a little bit more credit.
For some reason, that did not bother me or make me feel self-conscious in the slightest.
Right. But, you know what? And that's exactly what will happen eventually, either after enough alcohol or enough times on the dance floor tonight. It will be the same thing because you'll realize everybody's kind of paying attention to themselves. So yeah, you'll be.
Yeah, we talked about that before. That was a source of. That was a source of concern for me when I first started doing barbell lifts at the gym, where I was like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym and lift because everybody's going to be looking at me and they're going to see that I'm doing it wrong and blah, blah, blah. And now, that I'm, 5 years into doing, heavy barbell training, it's like, I don't care what anybody else is doing. I barely worry about what I'm doing. I just focus on, getting my legs down and getting them back up with all that weight on my back.
Yeah, and one of my trainers reminded me, which was great, which is you have no idea why people are in the gym, and so they might be doing the weirdest lifts where they're using all their body English as they talk about, and they're not actually isolating anything. These people could be doing exercises because they're athletes and they need that full range of motion and they need to put their whole body into it versus like isolating something. Right. So and I don't lift that way, but I was placing judgment on them. Right. And going, well, they're doing it all wrong. They're going to hurt themselves. And I have no idea. And so once I realized I have no idea what everybody else is doing, I stopped caring at that point. I was just like, I'm just going to focus on what I'm trying to do.
Oh, I still judge other people though. Like the you're talking about, I definitely still do that. Like if I'm in there, if I'm in the squat rack and the guy next to me, puts 315 or 405 on there, and then his squat is going down like 2 inches and then back up, I'm like, what's this guy doing? I don't say anything, of course, but I do get a little judgy when people put in tons of weight and then do zero movement. It's like, okay, that looks a little performative to me.
Yeah, I honestly, right. I do the same thing. I just don't obsess about it anymore, right? Like, yeah, of course that goes through my mind too.
But the opposite is true though, where if I saw somebody who just got in there and was just doing the bar and no additional weight, I would not look at them and be like, oh, look at them, they can't lift anything. For them, I'd be like, oh, good for them, they're in the gym, they're doing something. It's the other side of it where I think people are trying to show off and then not actually doing the lifts that's when I get a little
that's fair. That's fair for sure. But you don't know. I mean, they're exercising his hip flexor a little bit, you never know.
Yeah, no, they could be, like I didn't think about it until the way you said it, where, they could have a very valid concern where they're trying to do something that I don't know. And I don't
like an injury, something like that they're working through. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, maybe they need to just practice getting out of the top of their squat and walking it back to the rack.
Right. I mean, they do that where they have box squats, right? I mean, where you're only going down halfway. And so, and life's too short to worry about everybody else. So
yes, indeed it is. It is. Okay. So
speaking of which, this leads into why we're here, what we're doing. Right.
Oh, it's not going to be all dance and workout discussions for the Mindfully Masculine podcast.
Well, I think that's a good balance, right? Dancing and lifting, right? For Mindfully Masculine. No, I think they might get a little bit bored of that.
Okay, so let's introduce the first topic that we're going to tackle in the upcoming episodes, which is our little review and discussion of No More Mr. Nice Guy, the book by Dr. Robert Glover. You and I have various experience with this book. I've been familiar with it for a long time. You got onto it a little bit more recently, but we're both in the middle of multiple rereads and trying to apply the concepts from the book to our lives as well as our relationships. So let's jump into the topic a little bit more and talk about why Dr. Glover wrote this book and what it's supposed to get done. So first question I'll open up for you is, in the context of this book and in the context of some, contemporary references to nice guys, what is a nice guy?
I'm a nice guy, or I'm a recovering nice guy.
Okay.
So I think a lot of that is really seeking out approval from others. For example, if I'm a nice guy, everybody will like me and love me. And through that, I will get the women that I like will love me back. Right. As well as people too. This isn't just applying to women in general. I think relationships in general. That's why I think this book is really powerful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think so the fact that being a nice guy is something that one recovers from, that definitely means that there is a negative connotation there of, it's just not, oh, here's a person who's nice to other people. There's sort of a dark side to it as well, which, like you said, there's these covert contracts, meaning these secret agreements that we form with the world that the world doesn't know about, and oftentimes we don't know about, where we have these attitudes of, if I'm nice enough, then everybody's gonna want to be around me. And if I do for people without them having to ask me to do for them, then I can expect that they're going to do for me as well without me having to ask. Right.
And that's the dangerous part is, and that's the problem, is that one, you are, by not asking, you are making assumptions and you are not being straightforward with your intentions. And that's deceitful. And then for you, or a nice guy, I should say, to get upset when those needs aren't met, it doesn't make any sense. It's irrational. And
true.
And so that's what is dangerous and not so nice about the nice guy, is that it's deceitful because you're coming across as a very generous, kind, thoughtful person with these, like you said, these covert contracts. And that's just purposely not communicating clearly. And that's where there's going to be some friction that gets caused from that, whether it's short term or over the long term, from either the person that you're doing it to or your own resentment that builds up over time because you keep doing these nice things over and over and over again for people, and you're never getting what you want, but yet you don't have the balls to ask for it either. And so, and I've been there with past relationships where I've done all these things, and it's just kind of like, well, how come you're not doing what I want you to do? You should just know that I want these things. I've been doing all these wonderful things for you. You're taking me for granted. And then I'm out. And yeah, it's not the way to operate.
Yeah. And you mentioned a word that I kind of grabbed onto, which was that it's irrational. And, show me a person who is persistently acting based on irrational beliefs about the way they see the world, and I'll show you a person that's not that much fun to be around. I mean, it's exhausting for that person and the people around them when you hold these opinions about the way the world actually works, or the way the world should work, and you've just got it wrong. It's like you got wired the wrong way back when, and you've stuck with these beliefs that aren't true, and as a result, you're making it very, very hard for people to deal with you in a healthy way.
And one of the things I think Glover talks about was that a lot of us are wired this way as from childhood. It's not something that this is an anomaly. I think a lot of us get wired as nice guys for a number of different reasons. And maybe you'd like to kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah, he does cover that. I've heard him cover that both in the book as well as in some interviews that he's given, where it's like, to come out of childhood with some complicated but false beliefs about the world, it doesn't require a history of dramatic neglect and abuse. It can be fairly simple things like, there was a time when you were very young when you weren't fed on time, or your diaper wasn't changed quickly enough, or your dad wasn't around because he had a job that took a lot of hours, or you had a sick sibling and your parents had to devote extra time to care for them. So, I mean, these aren't ridiculously rare circumstances that can lead to this belief of, my needs aren't really all that important, so I can't expect for them to be met. So, if I feel a need in my life, if there's something that I want from somebody that I care about, surely I can't just ask them for it, because their answer will be no. So I have to come up with a strategy to get what I need from them that doesn't include just being honest with them and saying, hey, here's what I need. Will you do this for me? And so that's where we develop these coping skills and these defense mechanisms to try to trick the people we love, or the world in general, into meeting our needs, because we don't believe that if we're honest, we're going to get what we need out of them.
Exactly. For me, and one of the other characteristics of a nice guy is, if I do everything right, I should have an easy problem-free life. It's a perfectionist mindset, which I know I've been programmed with a little bit. And again, I mean, I had, in all respects growing up, I had a pretty much trauma and drama-free life, but I was programmed that way from a few experiences with older relatives where they tried to show me something. I didn't do it exactly right. And, they chuckled at me, they laughed at me, and not in a mocking, horrible way either. Something, when you see a kid do something silly or funny, you laugh. And that's really kind of all it was. But however, as a child, seeking approval constantly from from adults and doing something new that I've never done before. So already feeling insecure about that. And then to get laughed at, even it was as mild as it was, it registered with me that I shouldn't even bother doing anything unless I do it perfectly. And that has stuck with me my entire life. And it's something I still struggle with. And, it stops me then also from feeling comfortable saying or asking for something when I need something, or I don't think I'm going to do something right. So I would rather not ask or bring it up or communicate that, and kind of keep it inside, and either struggle with it, build resentment for not actually putting it out there, not getting what I want, versus communicating that. And that was another piece to it, is that I like about this book, is he talks about how to communicate as well. It's not just here are your problems with no solutions. He does go through and kind of talks you through how to communicate those needs as well.
Yeah, and I think we've already hit on what some of the negatives are. Obviously, it does impact your romantic relationship. Certainly, I mean, guys can definitely fall into a trap where they are overly concerned with the approval of the women in their lives, and they're willing to make concessions about what they want or what they need because they don't want to rock the boat and deal with what happens when I tell somebody, hey, this is what I need and I'm not getting it. What can we do about this? But we also see that this can impact people's careers too. Guys can find themselves in a career or a job that they love, but not feeling fulfilled for it, or fulfilled from it, and not getting as far as they think they should be, because they're unwilling to be the guy that stands up at a meeting and says, this isn't working for me. This isn't gonna, the current track that we're on isn't going to lead to a successful resolution of this problem, and here's what we have to do. And I'll be the bad guy that says this isn't working out. And that's a hard position to put yourself in. And I think if you've got some of these nice guy tendencies, it gets even harder. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, because you're then in subconsciously thinking, I'm going to be at risk for either losing my job, losing this relationship, and our based on our our early wiring, our nice guy wiring, our brains are going to that extreme and going, hey, this is a huge risk. Don't do it. You're going to have horrible consequences, if you say anything, if you say what you really want. But inside, this kind of bubbles up and bubbles up and bubbles up over time, and eventually it comes out in a way where it's being led with emotion, and when it does come out, it does not come out in a healthy, productive way. It comes out in a way that actually could risk could risk what you're worried about, the relationship or the job or wherever else, because you've let it just got to the point of where it overwhelms you, and you can't then properly verbalize it through your modern brain and your mouth.
Yeah, and I think there is a temptation to be the guy that says what people want to hear, and because that does intuitively, it seems like that would be a pleasant life, and you're the guy that can be counted on to say what people want to hear all the time, and so everybody's going to like you because you only report the good news, you never report the bad news.
Yeah,
but what I've learned is that it's a more meaningful life to be the guy that always tells the truth.
And also, just by you saying this now, just made me think and realize, how much value are you actually adding to the situation, to that person, or the situation, if you are just agreeing with everything that's going on, especially if you have other information that says, man, I don't agree, and this is the reasons why, and you don't share that with people. You're actually kind of doing everyone a disservice, and you're not adding as much value as you possibly could. So I think part of what you just said, which is, as it pertains to a job in particular, by not sharing that, then you really are limiting your own growth and your own engagement and experience with that job by holding back what and you're not sharing that. So, ultimately, you're doing this. We're doing this all to ourselves, right? This is we have to point the fingers at ourselves. I mean, yes, we were programmed as children. However, we're adults now. We can look at ourselves and look back at ourselves about the situations we had as children, and can understand what was going on and what happened at the time. And it's our choice whether we do something about it now or not.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about guys who may find themselves in the same position we are, where okay, you had something that happened, whether it's, you know, a breakup or a professional setback or something like that, and you're open to the idea of, okay, maybe I'm carrying some beliefs around that are limiting my full potential. You pick up this book, you read this book, and now you want to say, okay, I'm ready to abandon some of these bad ideas and make some changes. What can those changes look like, and what works? Now, I mean, I think we both agree that, you know, being open enough to read a book that tells you you need to make changes is a very positive first step, right?
Absolutely.
And so here's some of the things that I find, in addition to reading the book, are working for me. Maybe the most important one is spending time with other men that you can trust and talk to without worrying about judgment. And
Sure.
I'm lucky to have a couple of those friendships, including you, where I can say, hey man, this is what happened to me today, this is how I chose to react to it, and I'm not thrilled with what I did, but here's where I'm at, so what do you think? And I can't imagine a scenario where I couldn't run that by you for your opinion without you know, making me feel bad about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know, the value too, you got to remember from your point of view, and anybody else who's going to be seeking out a safe person to, you know, to engage with on this, these issues with, is that if it's the right person on the other end of it, they're going to get some value out of this too. They're going to be learning the same way that we learned through some of the stories in the book, the same way that we hope that some of our listeners are going to learn from our own experiences and our own interpretations of the book. I learn when you send me something, and, you know, and it goes both ways. I send you stuff all the time, you know, so advice on, hey, you know, take a look at how I communicated here. What do you think? Right. And actually it's happened this morning. So, you know, and it really, you know, it settled me down, and it was great. So it helped me take a step outside. So, you know, and when you send me things, I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, I put myself in your shoes and I say, hey, how would I handle this? And, you know, that is valuable experience as well. So if I have something similar in the future, I'm going to draw from that. I'm going to, you know, from whatever I can remember, but I will absolutely draw from that. So know that as you look for resources, people, groups in your life to be able to, you know, be a little bit more vulnerable with, to talk about these things, that, you know, as long as you're, I think, willing to do the same for that other person, or be part of a group and contribute in that way, they're going to get some value out of it too. On both ways, being able to share as well as being able to learn from your own experiences, and being vulnerable in that respect. So it's been priceless for me.
I think, it is important to have those people. And when it comes to this book and the specific issues that it addresses, it's got to be some guys. It can't just be your mom, your sister, your lady best friend. It's gotta be at least one, maybe multiple guys that you can talk to and experience, you know, see the world somewhat the same way you do, and experience the same challenges that you do.
Absolutely. And where I do see a lot of these nice guy tendencies, even in women these days, it's not exclusive to men. I think it's definitely more predominant in men, and the way we've been raised, and the way, you know, a lot of the expectations around men, a lot of that, you know, also kind of comes down to, you know, you know, in society, you shouldn't be showing weakness. You know, you're looked down upon for having any kind of weakness, but yet, you know, there's a lot of societal pressure out there to also be super sensitive guys, and you know, I think a lot of that is actually shown in story form through, you know, through movies and television, you know, depicting the way a relationship goes, where the nice guy actually ends up getting the girl in the end, and that is rarely the case, I believe.
Yeah, there is a very specific, very limited form of performative sensitivity and vulnerability that society and some women want from men. You know, they want They want a certain kind of sensitivity and a certain kind of vulnerability in a very limited circumstance, so that they can feel like, they're not married or dating just a total caveman. But, and I think, is that unfair? Is that difficult? I mean, it's certainly difficult. Maybe it's unfair, but, there are going to be certain burdens that men are going to be saddled with that we have to figure out how to deal with. And the only way that we can figure out what that balance is by making our own mental and emotional health a priority. And you get as healthy as you can be. And then when a situation arises and you have to walk the line of how strong do I need to be? How vulnerable do I need to be? That will come naturally when you've taken the time and the steps to make sure that you're emotionally and mentally healthy.
Yeah. And I agree. And one of the, being that the podcast is called Mindfully Masculine, I know I feel better equipped to make those decisions when I am practicing some mindfulness. So when I do meditate on a regular basis, I know a simple example is little things that would annoy me don't annoy me. If there's issues, I feel a little bit more detached from them, and I can make a better decision about how to proceed forward versus when I don't meditate and I've gone a little while without doing that, I tend to base a lot of my actions purely on my initial emotion, initial feelings I get that come up about the situation versus having that space and go, okay, I still have those feelings. However, because I've been meditating and because I'm a little bit more mindful, I now have a little bit of a gap before I act. I can put my brain has been relaxed enough to recognize the feelings that I'm having and then pause before taking an action. And that includes opening my mouth.
Right.
And I think finding ways that we can relax and relax our brain. We're constantly getting stimulated from everything all day long, even ads, even just driving down the road and you see billboards. All of that stuff is getting, in our peripheral vision, all that stuff is getting programmed in our brains. And those are that information then, it's not maybe on the top of your conscious brain, but it's in our subconscious. And we do need time, as human beings to relax and kind of black out all of that input so that we can let it rest. And once we have some rest, then I feel like we can all make better decisions. And I think one of the things that we're struggling with in society is the information overload is overwhelming us. And we need to consciously make those mindful choices, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's, when I talk to people about the benefits of meditation, it really is just, it's a way for you to work out the muscle of your attention, because by default, all we do all day is think about things and have thoughts arise that we don't control. Things just pop into our head and then they distract us. They make us feel good. They make us feel bad. And we're just along for the ride, where with a mindfulness practice, you can decide what you give your attention to. Yeah. And you can then decide what you don't give your attention to. And there really is no way to build up that skill other than spending time meditating, every day, ideally. And, learning to focus on your breath, learning to focus on, your visual field, learning to focus on the sound. I mean, you can choose anything as an object of meditation and practice paying attention to that thing at the exclusion of everything else. And then when something unexpected or negative happens to you during the day, you've got this skill in your toolbox of saying, okay, I'm not going to devote my attention to the spontaneous feelings that I'm feeling bubble up inside of me. Rather, I'm going to focus on, the coming up with a solution or feeling grateful for the things that have gone right today or whatever. It's one of the most important skills that I think a man can develop, is the ability to decide what he puts his attention on.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have, not a lot anymore. I mean, these days it's a little bit more accepted, but I've talked to some people even recently that say, hey, I just can't sit there and meditate. My brain goes all over the place and, I can't. They think it's not having any thoughts. It's clearing your brain.
Right.
And that's not the case. The meditation is actually the processing of everything that comes through your brain and it's going to jump all over the place. And the meditation part, the practice is recognizing that your brain is doing that. It's just building that awareness. Hey, I'm in this space right now. I should be focusing on my breath, or I should be, or I should not should be, but the practice is coming away from those thoughts and refocusing on either your sound, your mantra, your breath. But the practice is the coming back part. So
right.
If our brains didn't have the monkey mind and jumping around all over the place, we wouldn't be able to practice what we need to practice, which is the awareness and then coming back.
Right.
And what I also recently figured out was it's not just sitting there with your eyes closed and listening to your breath. That's not the only form of meditation that we typically do. So journaling, for example, is also a similar practice where you basically just sit there and you just write out anything. You don't write with a purpose other than whatever thought comes to mind. You just write that out. Just put it on a piece of paper. That's another way you could do it. On your phone, you could put it in an Evernote or a note. You could just voice to text kind of thing, and just as thoughts come through, you can put it down there. And then you don't even have to go that far. You could just talk to yourself. You just take a walk and talk to yourself and say things out loud. And I think the important part is you get these thoughts that are running through your brain out into the world. Once they're released, it's a little bit easier than for you to relax. They are now gone. So that now that they're gone, you've made space in your brain, in your mind, to then handle the decision and make that decision versus being overwhelmed with all that stuff that's rattling around in there. Right. So there's many forms of meditation and processing, we should really call it, I think, that we already naturally do or we can do. And whenever I do any of those things, it's always helpful. But, walking around the block, talking to yourself, I look a little crazy sometimes, but, it is what it is.
It's important to take a shower, a shave, and dress well if you're going to walk around the neighborhood talking to yourself, so that, it's very clear that you haven't escaped from some sort of facility.
Or you can just put your headphones in, right? And people think you're talking to somebody on the phone. So I guess that would work
very
too,
clever.
Right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could be yelling at nobody. So I think.
Right, well, yeah, I think we've got there's a few other things we can talk about that are helpful, but we'll pepper those in as we work our way through the chapters of this book and talk a little bit more detail about where this stuff comes from, what the positive and negatives can be, as well as when people want to make some changes, some positive changes, where they can start. So, but I think that's a good overview of the concept of nice guys, and people can decide if they want to pick up Dr. Glover's book. Again, No More Mr. Nice Guy is the title. And also join us as we get into each of the concepts a little bit more in depth in the coming episodes.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And the way we're looking at this is we're leading learners. We are not experts. We're still figuring things out on our own. So we are certainly not perfect. And I hope you don't take it as our word as gospel. But we're moving along the journey, and we're hoping that by sharing it with you, it's actually going to enhance our understanding and our learning and our experience as well. So we're doing this for selfish reasons a little bit.
No, absolutely. I think the way that you get better at this material is by staying in it, and there's no better way to stay in it than sharing it with other people and trying to be of help and be of service. So if anybody has any feedback or questions, I did set up a mindfully masculine email address at gmail.com. So just hit us at mindfullymasculine@gmail.com, and we will respond to you either personally or in a future episode.
Thanks, and have a great day.
Thanks for spending your time with us on the Mindfully Masculine podcast. If you found value in what we had to say, please like, review, and subscribe. For more of our content, check out our website at mindfullymasculine.com. And if you want to directly support our work, you can buy us a coffee using the link in the description. We'll talk to you next time.